What's up, you guys? Welcome back to my channel and welcome back to a Halloween special edition of our Get Ready With Me series. Today we will be discussing the book Carrie by Stephen King, a classic, and I will also, in light of the fact that it's Halloween week, be transforming myself into Carrie while I do the Get Ready With Me and we discuss the book, because you know what? Why not? I also will be using the new Huda Beauty Mercury Retrograde palette. The reason being, it showed up this morning and honestly, nothing has ever given me more prom queen vibes in my life, so I think it's absolutely going to be perfect for this. If you are looking for actual tutorials with this palette, have no fear. I will be doing a 3 looks video with it later this week, but I wanted to get this video up and done with first, so it was like in a timely fashion for Halloween. This we could do any old time. This has no theme except for Mercury Retrograde, which I'm gonna be honest, I don't know what that means. If you're new to my channel or if you've only subscribed recently and you haven't seen my Get Ready With Me series before, what we do is we get ready. We talk about a book that we have all agreed to read in advance. Basically, if you haven't read the book, you can still hang out and just listen to the discussion, because in this case, I think most people know what takes place in Carrie, and also it's usually just like an entertaining, chill, laid back time. I talk about what happens in the book, my thoughts on it, while I do my makeup. It's pretty simple. One last thing before we get started on the makeup, I just wanted to mention that this book contains a lot of gore and violence, some mentions of like dark religious topics. There's some weird sexual shit in it too, so if any of that doesn't sit well with you, then this might not be the video for you. Just wanted to give you a warning in advance. I'm not going to go into like graphic detail about anything because that's just not usually what I do, but it will be mentioned probably at some point, so just wanted to put that out there for you. And as always with this series, because I'm not going to be discussing what I'm using like with my mouth, I will put it here on the screen so you can see what product I'm using at what part, and I'll also list that all in the description below as well. Oh, I also wanted to say that I know I'm not the first person to ever do Carrie makeup here on YouTube, but one notable person that has this year, and I thought it was really cool, was Atleeeey. I had already thought about doing this and started reading the book in preparation before she posted that, but I thought hers was cool and I like to spread the love, so I'm going to link hers in the description as well. All right, that's it. Let's get into it and start talking about Carrie and doing my makeup to turn me into Carrie, full circle. Part 1 of this book is called Bloodsport, which I'm pretty sure is also the name of a really cheesy Van Damme movie from the 80s. But one of the things I found interesting was that a lot of times when you have a premise set up where there's a character with special powers, they spend a lot of time developing this idea and hinting that the character has special powers. In this book, that's not the case at all. They come right out of the gate and tell us that Carrie has telekinesis. One of the first scenes in the book, as a matter of fact, is from when she is about 3 years old, and it's like a flashback scene. There's a lot of those in this book, and she lives with just her mom. Her mom is a deeply religious woman. Deeply religious in a way where she's so zealous that she has left every church that they've been a part of because they weren't strict enough. And this is no shade to deeply religious people. I know that most deeply religious people are not like this, but Carrie's mother is a whole nut. Carrie, as a 3-year-old, finds her way over to her neighbor's backyard and finds her young, probably teenage-ish neighbor out sunbathing. And as a 3-year-old, as 3-year-olds do, asks her what her boobs are, pretty much, because she's curious and thinks to herself that she likes them and she wishes that she had some boobs. Carrie's mom comes out and finds her and absolutely loses her shit. I don't even mean that she's just angry. She literally starts screaming and scratching at her own face. Again, this book doesn't waste any time getting to the point. We're right into the premise and we're right into it being very dark. This particular scene is told from the perspective of the neighbor. So we see that Carrie walks away with her mom and goes into the house. There's some yelling and the mother seems angry, and then it stops until a few hours later when chunks of ice and stones start falling from the sky onto the White's house, and it only hits their house, which is obviously very strange, on top of it being very strange that there's stones just hitting their house anyway. We're also shown very early on that Carrie is often made fun of at school from an early age. They write things on the desk like "eat shit, Carrie White," We fast forward to her in high school, and this is one of the pivotal scenes for the plot of the book itself. All of the girls in Carrie's class are in the showers after gym class, and Carrie is kind of the odd one out just all of the time, but especially in that situation because you're super vulnerable. And the girls in her gym class notice that she has a trickle of blood running down the inside of her legs. At this point, these kids are all like 17 or 18 years old, so they weren't really thinking that maybe Carrie didn't ever get her period before, and they certainly didn't realize that Carrie had no idea what her period was, which is fucked. Like, your mom really should tell you. Your mom or whoever takes care of you when you're a kid, like, they need to fill you in on that kind of thing. The teacher on the scene is a woman named Miss Desjardins, and at first she's kind of frustrated with Carrie and tries to rush her out of the shower. She says she's taking too long, and she kind of just stands idly by while the kids mock Carrie. They throw tampons at her, they chant period, period, period. They're generally just little shits about it. Finally, Miss Desjardins kind of picks up on what's going on, and she starts to feel terrible. So she takes Carrie out of the situation, she brings her to the principal's office, and she tells her that they're going to send her home early. At this point, we start to see Carrie's anger manifesting in a telekinetic way. Like when she's angry at Miss Desjardins, the lights flicker. When she goes into the principal's office, the principal doesn't know her name and something goes flying off the principal's desk. They send her home and they just let her walk home by herself. And while she's on her way home, she sees a boy on a bicycle. I don't know what he's doing out of school. You little bastard, go back to school. He makes fun of her as he rides by, and then Carrie uses her telekinetic powers to knock him off his bicycle and wonders what else she could do if she tried hard enough. During the period in the shower situation, there is one girl named Sue Snell who kind of has an inkling that maybe Carrie had never gotten her period before, and it starts to like sit in her mind a little bit that maybe they shouldn't have done what they did to Carrie. Later, we see Sue in a situation where she is having sex with her boyfriend Tommy, and she tells Tommy after they finish having sex that she feels bad about the Carrie situation and she wants to find a way to make it up to her somehow. Tommy tries to tell her that it's not a big deal and that she didn't really know that she was doing something so wrong and she shouldn't feel so bad about it, but Sue kind of doesn't let it sit there. Sorry, I just had to finish my brows off camera because I couldn't like concentrate and do my brows at the same time. I don't know why I was having trouble with that today, but I was. When Carrie gets home early from school, her mom is home waiting for her. She tells her mom that she got her period, and the mom, you would think, would be like, oh, okay, well, you know, let's help you take care of that. But when she does tell her, her reaction, she beats her up, she slaps her around, she throws her in the closet. Once she's in the closet, you get a very clear picture that this is not the first time that Carrie has been thrown in this closet for extended periods of time. There are religious texts and pictures plastered all over the inside of it, and it seems to be like the penance place where her mom throws her when she has behaved badly, which I don't know how your own biology is bad behavior, but I'm not Carrie's mom, you know? On Monday morning, Miss Desjardins gets back to school. She tells all the girls that were in the class with Carrie that they did a shitty thing, which, I mean, is better than nothing, but honestly, Miss Desjardins, a little bit of empathy right off the bat would have been great. One specific girl named Chris Hargensen is very upset about being reprimanded because Miss Desjardins gives them all detention and tells them that if they don't serve their detention that they're not allowed to go to the prom. So Chris tells her dad, and the dad comes up to the school and threatens to sue the principal because of them not allowing her to go to prom, which is, that's a weird thing to sue somebody for. The moral of the story is that Chris Hargensen is a spoiled little brat and she's gonna cause some issues later. Somehow Chris manages to blame Carrie in her mind for the detention, and she decides that she is going to find a way to exact her revenge. Sue Snell is hanging out with her boyfriend again at some point, and she tells him that in order to make up for the shower incident with Carrie, she thinks it would be nice if he would take Carrie to prom in her place. It seems as if this is like a genuine thought of atonement from Sue. It doesn't feel like she's trying to set her up or be mean or anything like that, but it also seems like it comes from a place of selfishness and not feeling bad for what she did, more so than it does from a concern for Carrie herself. Tommy agrees to take Carrie to prom, and he asks her at school, and at first she thinks she's being tricked and she says no, but after he persists a few times she changes her mind and she says yes. When she gets home, she tells her mom, who she calls Mama pretty routinely, which it's not like a significant detail, but I feel like it sets the tone for their relationship a little bit. The mom, as you might expect, absolutely flips her shit that Carrie's going to the prom. She says it's sinful, she says it's sexual, she says it's the devil. She also tells Carrie that sex is evil and that she's evil if she likes it. And then Carrie has like this guilt because in her mind she's like, well, I kind of do, and I'm like interested in the feelings. And her mom blames the fact that she wants to go to the prom and partake in these sinful activities on the fact that she's gotten her period, which is something that she says that the devil sent. Carrie, knowing now that she has these telekinetic powers, first of all, flings a pie off the table in the middle of this conversation, but also just sort of goes about her business without worrying about what her mother thinks, because she knows that she's got a lot of power and her mom kind of can't stop her. So she runs off and goes and starts to sew herself a prom dress to get ready for her big date. We flash over to the perspective of Sue Snell again, and Sue makes it known at this point that she feels a little bit of concern that Chris will sabotage the prom. Later that night, we see Chris Harkinson's boyfriend Billy, and he sneaks off with his friends to a local farm to kill 2 pigs and take their blood, which is absolutely horrific. What kind of kids can do that for a prank? It's effed up. Part 2 begins. Part 2 is called Prom Night, which is actually the name of one of the Carrie movies that came out, if I'm not mistaken. Carrie has finished her prom dress and she puts it on. It's a red dress, which by the way means that I got the wrong color top for this costume. If you see in the thumbnail or my Instagram photo of this that this is red, I have photoshopped that. But she puts on this red dress, and red to her mother is a sinful color. The dress also shows some cleavage, and Carrie's mother refers to boobs or cleavage as dirty pillows, which you guys can tell me in the comments if you feel this way too. But personally, the name dirty pillows for breasts really does not sit well with me. And I think it's because it is both sexualizing them and like infantilizing them at the same time, and it just really creeps me the fuck out. This shade is giving me so much fallout. Wowzer, wowzer. Regardless, Carrie's mom is pissed that the dirty pillows are out and about, and Carrie, at this point, she doesn't really give a shit about anything anymore, and she literally slides her mom away with her telekinesis to like get her out of her face. She begins to pace around the house. She's worried that Tommy isn't gonna show up and that he's like playing a trick on her. Like, she's straight up in a panic about it, even though he was only literally 3 minutes late. When Tommy shows up, he doesn't make fun of her, and he tells her that she looks beautiful, and she's elated about it, and they leave to go to the dance together. We flash over to the perspective of Chris Harkinson and her boyfriend Billy, and they're discussing their plans to sabotage the dance, which is why Billy went to go get the pig's blood. Their plan is that they're going to rig the pig's blood over the stage where the prom king and queen will be standing, and then they're going to rig the election to make it that Carrie and Tommy win, and then pour the blood over them. At the dance itself, Tommy and Carrie are having a pretty good time. Tommy's being very nice to her. He introduces her to some of his friends, especially this one girl named Frida. Frida compliments Carrie's dress that she made herself, and she actually genuinely means it. To me, it does feel like Tommy is trying genuinely to be pretty nice to her. But I have to wonder, like, what was his end game? Because he's still got a girlfriend. So at some point, she's gonna know that he's not genuinely interested in her in a romantic way. And it just feels like this is a nice gesture, but ill thought out. Then she and Tommy have like a romantic moment looking at each other over candlelight. Tommy asks her if she'd like to go dance, and she resists because she doesn't want to tell Tommy, but she doesn't know how, or doesn't feel like she knows how. So Tommy, being a gentleman, or at least doing his best to put on a gentleman act for the moment, takes her around to all the different tables to go socialize with people and have fun that way. Back at home, while Carrie's at the dance, Mama decides that when Carrie gets home, she's gonna stab her to death because she's evil now. So really, this night was not gonna go well regardless of what happened at the actual dance. Once Tommy and Carrie have made their rounds at all of the tables, Tommy tells her that they should vote for themselves as prom king and queen. And at first, Carrie resists, but then she agrees. Make note of this because it's important. Sue is obviously not at the dance because her boyfriend brought somebody else, so she's at home. And Sue says that she can feel something terrible happening. She says that she's sitting home and feels like the whole world is ending. They announce the winner of prom king and queen, and Carrie and Tommy win by 1 vote. Their own vote. They go up to receive their prom king and queen crowns and what have you, and little bitch ass Chris stands on the side and pulls the string to let the buckets fall down over them. The one bucket completely covers Carrie in blood, and the other one hits Tommy on the head and knocks him completely unconscious. I also wanted to make a note at this part because this is where it struck me and I wrote it down in my notes. When I do these book videos, I usually read the book first, and then to do my notes on it, I listen to the audio version. And if you listen to the audio version, it was narrated by Sissy Spacek, and she's fantastic, but she has a distinctly Southern accent. And this book is supposed to take place in Maine, so I think it's a really strange choice that they made because as somebody who lives in New England and has for a while, I could tell you that the accent is all wrong. It should have been narrated by somebody who was going to say that Tommy got hit in the head with the bucket and took a dig a wicked hod. You know what I mean? Regardless, when Carrie gets hit with the blood, she kind of a switch flips in her mind. She's had enough. She jumps off the stage. They describe it like a creepy blood-covered frog. And this is when shit gets real. I went off camera and just finished the underneath part of my eyes with the same colors and threw on some lashes and just put on some highlighter because I am running out of book and I want to make sure that I do the blood portion on camera because I feel like that's more of like the Carrie part of this than the actual eye makeup. This palette is beautiful so far though. I'm very excited to film with it later this week. So Carrie is just unhinged at this point. She runs out of the auditorium and she locks the doors behind her using her telekinetic powers. The lights are flickering. People are starting to stampede and become panicked, quite frankly, because what the hell is going on? I'm just gonna paint some of the blood onto the crown. So Carrie sets off these sprinklers and they begin to flood the entire floor of the auditorium. There's a lot of lighting equipment, there's a lot of sound equipment because this is a dance, and people begin to get electrocuted. And at this point, we get some perspective from Carrie's POV, and it's very, very clear that her intention at this point is to kill as many people in her school and her town as possible with her telekinetic powers. We get some perspective from a man who is described as the town drunk. And what he says that he witnessed was Carrie just walking down the street. She's exploding fire hydrants and basically just breaking everything in her path. And when the cops asked this town drunk what he knew about Carrie when he had originally seen her, he says that he had never seen Carrie before and he didn't know who she was, but he knew inherently, like it was just some sort of inherent human knowledge that she was indeed Carrie White. He says he doesn't know what that means, but this becomes kind of a theme for the rest of the ending of the book because pretty much everyone that they interview, and that's a lot of people, say the same thing. So something about Carrie's telekinesis is sort of slipping itself and the knowledge of who she is into these people's minds. Once Carrie's done breaking all the fire hydrants, she goes ahead and uses her telekinetic power to make all of the gas pumps come off of their handles and start spilling gas out into the streets. The drunk man says that somebody went by and flicked a cigarette without realizing what was going on, and that's when all of the explosions started. Carrie had had some great results, quote unquote, great results in electrocuting people in the gymnasium, she decides to repeat this little party trick by flooding the streets first with the fire hydrants and then causing all of the electric lines to come down and just turn the streets into electricity that's gonna fry everyone as they run out. And she times it so that people are running to see what the explosions were at the very moment that she is going to electrocute them all. Sue Snell, because she had this terrible feeling, came running toward the direction of Carrie. And now when Sue was interviewed, and it's said in the book that Sue has her entire own book written about the experience. They pull some excerpts and info from, obviously it's like a fake book within a book, but that's, you know, you get the point. But Sue describes this as she just was drawn to Carrie. She knew that she was being drawn in her direction and she had to go find her. So Sue is out and about looking for Carrie. Once Carrie has electrocuted everybody in the streets, she decides it is time to go home and kill her mother. Little does she know, her mother is also waiting there to kill her. So when Carrie gets in the door, Mama stabs her right in the shoulder blade with a knife. And Carrie tells her that she's going to give her a gift. Little does Mama know that the gift is her own death. So Carrie just slowly stops her heart using her telekinetic powers. And at this point, you must be thinking, oh, surely Carrie's done. Surely she has wreaked enough chaos, but oh nay. Chris and Billy had been at some roadhouse down the street hooking up. I'm not exactly sure how they escaped the dance before all this shit went down. They must have taken off as soon as Chris dropped the buckets on them. They get word of what's going on and they try to take off, but it's too late. They get into the car and Carrie is standing in the street in front of their car, just wild-eyed. So Billy gets the bright idea that the way to handle this is going to be just to floor it and just crash right into Carrie. But Carrie, with her telekinetic powers, puts up some like air shield around her, and Billy drives his car into it as fast as he can and winds up hitting this shield of air and killing both him and Chris pretty much instantly. So Chris and Billy are done for. Quite frankly, out of anybody in this book, they got what they deserved, the absolute most. And now Carrie is just out kind of hobbling around the streets. Keep in mind, she's been dumped blood on, she's been stabbed in the shoulder, she's been banged up in a bunch of different ways, and she's starting to lose consciousness and is just dragging herself through the streets. But Sue still has this honing mechanism in her mind that is drawing her to Carrie, and she finds Carrie laying in the street. When she finds her, they have like a weird telekinetic sort of like a conversation between the two of them. Pop my bloody crown on. Carrie sees in Sue's mind that Sue, in a sense, kind of always hated Carrie, but describes it as hated her not in a personal way. Like maybe the guilt of that feeling is what drove Sue to try to misguidedly help Carrie by having Tommy take her to the prom. Essentially, Sue's hatred for Carrie seems like it had more to do with Sue herself and her own insecurities than it actually did with Carrie as a person, which does not excuse her behavior at all, but also kind of just gives you a little perspective. Carrie dies laying in the street while having this telekinetic conversation with Sue, and Sue screams and runs away, and as she's running away, blood starts running down the inside of her own thighs, almost like that was like Carrie's last little bit of revenge telekinetic power as she died, was to inflict upon Sue the fear that she felt in the shower that day when she was made fun of. The last portion of the book isn't really any more of a story, it's just kind of gives us a recap on everything that happened in the town that night from the perspective of like articles and papers that were written about the incident. We learned that 440 people were killed by Carrie that night, and so many people who were involved wound up being dead that they almost don't have a great account of what went on because everybody who was there was killed. We also learned that people are very afraid of another telekinetic child being born. Once you know that a kid has these powers, and in the books, in like the research papers that are like intermittently interspersed between the chapters, they talk about how the powers usually come to be around the age of puberty. So if they saw the signs of these powers in a child before they hit puberty, their argument is that they would be obliged to have to kill the child to avoid the child killing hundreds of people after it hits puberty like Carrie. But my question is if Carrie hadn't been treated so badly, would the telekinetic powers have manifested themselves in a way that was so deadly? We don't know. Please let me know what you think. Was Carrie destined to be this evil telekinetic powerhouse, or do you think that it could have played out differently? Obviously it's a book, it's not real, so it's all conjecture, but I'm just curious what you think. And the book ends with an excerpt from a letter from a woman in Tennessee who is talking about how her beautiful young grandchild is very interesting because she is able to move marbles around with her mind as she plays. And it's kind of one of those cliffhangers where you feel like, oh, maybe this is going to be Carrie 2, but as far as I'm aware, there never was a Carrie 2. Please leave me a comment down below and let me know what you think of this book, what you thought on any of the topics we discussed in this book. Let me know if you're excited for more looks with the Huda Mercury Retrograde palette, because oh man, I am. The blood part of this is obviously very, very simple, but if you want a recap of how I did it, is I used a water activated paint first, and then I painted stage blood over it just to give it a little bit more grip and stick to the skin, because stage blood on its own is very sticky, so I didn't want to make that like the entire base so I could make a thinner coat, if that makes sense. Please don't forget to leave a like on this video if you did enjoy it. I know it was a little less in-depth than the past versions of Get Ready With Me that we did, but this is obviously a shorter book. It's not as much a fantasy, it's more like based in reality, I guess, in a sense, so than Killer Fairies. But I really think it was a fun Halloween edition, and it was an excuse to paint on a costume while I talked about a book, which who can complain about that? Please don't forget to subscribe if you're new around here. We do these Get Ready With Me series every now and then. I like to take off some time in between so it doesn't kind of take over my channel and my life, quite frankly, because these are very labor intensive to make. But it's a fun thing to do when we do it, so I would love to have you around for more. And if you would like to see more looks with the Mercury Retrograde palette, that will be coming this week as well. So subscribe, subscribe, subscribe. If you want to see the final pictures of this look or just see what I do day to day on my Instagram story, go follow me on Instagram. I'm at Miss Quinface over there, and I would love to have you. If I do not see you guys here on this channel before Halloween, please have a happy and safe holiday, whether you're going out or just staying home and chilling, just whatever you do. I hope you enjoy yourself and are very, very safe. That's all for today. I'm gonna go take pictures of this and then change into another Halloween costume because I'm actually going somewhere tonight. Wow, I'm leaving my house, guys. It's a miracle. That's all for today. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you so much for hanging out with me and talking books and makeup today. As always, I appreciate each and every one of you, and I will see you in the next one. It's gonna be a video on this, most likely, like 99% sure.